Today, adding a new feature to my videos, subscriber questions, actual questions from you that you're facing and challenges as you try to create a reliability culture. For those folks that are in the United States and Canada, free book, including shipping for you if I use your question to make a video. If you're international, hey, I'll give you a free signed book, but you need to pay the postage because it can be $30, $40, $50, and I'm getting poorer as I pass out these free books. So, and I can make that easy for you to pay that. You go to my website, I got a pay thing. Opportunity for you to use a credit card, so make it very easy. Okay, question from Jeff from Georgia. Fully staffed, we have 12 mechanics and 6 electricians, total of 18 craft people. Presently, we are down to 15 people, down 3. You know, further, due to COVID, management has decided to cut overtime from about 20% down to 0. Backlog is growing from a historical 6 weeks to now 9, and it seems to be growing 2 to 3, 4, every 2 to 3, 4 weeks. It's adding another week, so it's growing a little bit out of control. I'm a reliability engineer, and my RCA action items, it's discouraging because they just keep getting put on the pile of work that gets pushed out, so they're not being accomplished. My maintenance manager knows about the problem, but has been unsuccessful in securing the approval to fill the vacancies or to work overtime. What would you do? This is Joe Kuhn of Lean Driven Reliability, bridging the gap between best practices and this example that Jeff has given you. You know what you should be doing, but you just can't figure it out how to do it with the business challenges you got. Wrote a book on this topic. Okay, first we need to understand backlog, okay? It's important you understand the math here. Okay, backlog. You got 18 people, 40 hours a week, 720 hours is a backlog week. Okay, so if you have 6 weeks of backlog, that just is 6 times the 720 or 4320 hours. Okay, diving into this. Now I have to make a few assumptions here based on the average plant that I see, what I expect based on what Jeff told me here. They're probably doing about 50% emergency work. Probably doing around 40% time-based work, time-based PMs, okay? And about 10% project work. So 100% of their work is divided up like this. So let's carry that out, okay? If you have 18 people, 50% of work, that's 360 hours a week, 280 hours dedicated to time-based PM, and projects only 80, that's the full 720 hours. And then it repeats week 2, and I got week X over here. What's important to recognize is that 90% of the work is fixed every single week. To eternity, it's fixed doing emergency work and time-based PMs, okay? So every time you add 80 hours worth of work, you add another week to the backlog. Okay, now Jeff says his backlog is actually 9 weeks, but since they went down 3 people, that's 120 hours a week, so they subtracted 120 hours out of the work that they needed to accomplish. So their backlog is actually growing out to infinity because they need to get this emergency work done and this time-based PMs done. So their work is adding 120 hours, goes out to infinity. You also reduced 3 persons. Well, I think I just said that. The 3 persons takes that to 120. Overtime takes that out. 20% overtime on 18 people is 144 hours a week. So you actually combined with the shortage of people and the overtime, you're losing 264 hours a week. And for every 80 hours, you add another week of backlog because you're still got to get the emergency work done and the time-based PM. So your backlog, in this case, Jeff's case, is actually infinity. What I'm predicting is Jeff's next question is the OEE and efficiency on the production lines has taken a nosedive because we're not getting the emergency work and these PMs done, okay? So the question was, what would I do? Most people focus on how do we get these things done, and boy, and we're missing out on our some of our PMs. You need to focus on where 90% of your people are. Most people focus on the 10. How do we get these projects done, these corrective actions? That was Jeff's question. No, how do we get efficiency here so we have some spillover in time to do these proactive projects? That's a huge mistake I see in plants. You know, step number one, very specific. These are actions to take in the first 30 days. I'm not having some grandiose plan. I'm not asking you to spend any money. Watch how much money I'm looking for you to spend here. You know, observe current state via chalk circle. Won't go into chalk circle, but it's not a 1 second observation. It's multi-day observations, hopefully by your entire lead team. Good chance, based on my experience, your emergency work is grossly overstaffed. That 50% is grossly overstaffed. It's staffed for the worst case. The worst day that you have in a month, we're going to staff for that. Okay? So that's a good assumption. No, that's a horrible assumption, but a good assumption on my part. You're horribly overstaffed for emergency work. Also, PMs, they're not based on failure mode. How many? On all of them. Are they based on failure modes? Do you have, what kind of wrench time do you have on your time-based PMs? Are they planned, kitted, staged jobs, or, you know, inefficient? Most of the time I see these jobs around 15%, which is a horrible wrench time, but that's a very common number. 12 to 15 is actually my most common number for wrench time. And you can get that up to 30 with some quick techniques that I'll talk about. And on these project people that you have assigned here, good chance they're constantly pulled off because you got surges in emergency work that happen that you pull these project people off. So they're extremely inefficient. They're probably around 10, 15% efficiency. Those are good assumptions, bad performance, but good assumptions. So what actions, after observations, what are some examples of things that I would do? So one, I would reduce the staffing in the emergency crew by 5 people, just as an example. 4 to 5 people. You know, and set up some overtime rules for surges. So when the emergency work peaks up, you don't pull the planned work people, you work overtime. You could probably work that out as a 90-day experiment with your plant manager. Says, I want to handle those surges so I can do planned work and capture the efficiency of planned work people in preventing future emergency work from happening, okay? You should be able to do that. That's actually a pretty easy sell. Okay, so invest those 5 people into, planned work execution. Maybe it's an additional planner you need, maybe it's a kidder, stager, whatever, but keep in mind that's going to lower your future unplanned work. Conduct PM Kaizen 1. I've got a separate video on this, but you're looking for gross errors in failure mode, like it doesn't do anything in failure mode. The frequency, how often do you do this? Does it need to be done every week or every month or every quarter? Look for gross errors in that. Manpower, do you have 2 people assigned to a job that can be easily done with 1? Do you have 4 people that can easily be done with 2? Very common mistakes. And then the duration of the job. Most jobs I see, they're, 2 people, 8 hours. And I look at the job and it's 2 people, 2 hours, or 1 person, 2 hours. So look at those duration issues, the staffing you put on it, the frequency, and is based on failure mode. Look at each PM for under 3 minutes. Look at each PM under 3 minutes, looking for gross errors. That's PM Kaizen 1. So implement rules for pulling the planned work people. Once you put people on planned work, even if it's time-based PMs, have rules in place that need second-level approval to pull those people off doing that work. You're trying to capture the efficiency of 1 hour's worth of planned work is with 7, 10, 20 times the work in emergency mode. Okay? You've got to capture that. It's the only way to win this game is to use that leverage of planned work. It's at least a 7-to-1 lever bar, okay, on hours. You've got to get it. Okay, so that's what I would do in the first 30 days. How much did that cost? 0. Okay, in the next 60, 90 days, I'd look to do a PM Kaizen 2 and 3, which are just deeper dives into, instead of spending 2 to 3 minutes on each PM, you're spending, 15 minutes on every PM, up to 30 minutes on the last one, maybe even a day or 2 on PM Kaizen 3 when you're really diving into failure modes, So, hey, my summary here, it's a huge mistake to look past the routine work, this where you got 90% of your hours every week, to look past that, to have the problem statement be, how do we get that 80 hours done? That's a massive mistake. Efficiency of your system, not the people. This has nothing to do with the work ethic of the people. It's your system that you've implemented at your plant. You own at your plant, not implemented. That is almost always ignored. Very rarely do I see people working on efficiency of the system of work being executed, working on wrench time. My prediction is you don't need to add these 3 people. You don't need to replace the overtime. Once you go through these exercises, you get out 90 days and do these action items that I've been talking about, you won't need to add them. You know, the lack of a go and see culture, forces management and engineers to make bad decisions and bad assumptions. Hey, our backlog is 6 weeks, it's growing to 9 weeks. We need to add people. You didn't have the go and see culture to see your inefficiencies in how you were executing work, were huge opportunity for you. Let me say that. You're making bad decisions because of that. You're making it off of just a KPI, not go and see. In this case, and I'll just use some rules of thumb, 3 people, 100,000 count a year, plus benefits per person, counting benefits. So that's $300,000. And then this overtime at 20% is $337,000. So that's $637,000 a year decision that was wrong because you were looking at KPIs only to try to implement corrective actions. Understanding current state by a go and see culture makes the solution simpler, saves a lot of money. And that impact, $637,000, excludes the impact you're having on operations, on yield, on OEE of the asset. It's huge. Hey, folks, begin your journey. I make this stuff sound pretty simple. And, if I can help you in any way, reach out to me, send me a comment. You've got my website, you've got my email below. Send me a question. Maybe I'll make a video out of it. Joe out.